Sorry to interrupt. I want to take you right now down to Charlottesville, where Chief Longo of that city's police department is holding a news conference on the Charlottesville Police Department's investigation. Let's listen.
Now, after the press conference this afternoon, you will be giving a very lengthy document. I say lengthy, it's about 6 or 7 pages. That kind of outlines the steps that Detective Sergeant Harris and Detective Vaya went through in an effort to investigate this incident. And what I'm going to do this afternoon is kind of in bullet form go through what those steps were and tell you the outcome that we've reached. And then, of course, we'll answer any questions that you might have to the extent we're able to answer those questions. So I'll ask for your cooperation up front. Before I begin, I want to take a moment to thank President Terry Sullivan at the University of Virginia and her staff for making themselves available to us, not only personally, but also making those records that they are legally able to disclose available to us so we could do as thorough a job as possible to investigate these allegations. I also certainly want to thank Legal Aid. They were helpful in the early stages of this investigation, working with the young lady that we came to identify in this case as Jackie. Also want to thank counsel on behalf of the Phi Psi fraternity who made available to us persons and records and other information that was helpful in our investigative process. I want to thank the University of Virginia Police Department, of course, our partner each and every day as we deal with issues in and around the university community. I also want to thank those who had the courage to come forward when we asked and be interviewed and cooperate with this important investigative process. They were under no compulsion to do so. We had no authority upon which to compel their cooperation, but they came forth nonetheless. And then lastly, I want to thank our service providers in the community and commit to our service providers and our survivors in this community to work to help address the important needs of the survivors of sexual assault in our community. As you know, the November 19th, 2014 article that was published in the Rolling Stone magazine prompted tremendous concern, and I think that's probably an understatement, in our community and throughout our nation about sexual assault generally and specifically how sexual assaults are handled on college campuses. Immediately upon the release of that article, the department was contacted by President Sullivan, and she respectfully requested that we commence an immediate criminal investigation into the facts that were contained within that article. Dean Nicola Ramo first learns of sexual assault that had occurred in September of 2012 on May the 20th, 2013, when she met with Jackie. Jackie was referred to Dean Ramo at that time for some academic issues, and it was during the course of that meeting that she described a sexual act. But that act that was described was not consistent with the facts and circumstances as they were described in the article in Rolling Stone magazine. At that time, she did not disclose a specific location as to where that event may have taken place. She again meets with Dean Ramo on April the 21st, 2014, regarding a physical assault which is alleged to have occurred on the corner involving 4 male subjects. It was during the course of that meeting that she discloses the Phi Kappa Psi house as the location of the September 28th, 2012 sexual assault. Now, the Charlottesville Police Department first became aware of the 2012 assault when an officer came to meet with Jackie and Dean Ramo and the University of Virginia police officer in April of 2014 after Jackie's second meeting with Dean Ramo. She described a set of circumstances that occurred on the university corner early that month, April the 6th, 2014 to be exact. Somewhere in the area of Ellwood Avenue, she would say that she came upon 4 male individuals. They began to follow her. One of them called her name. As she turned to look in their direction, she was struck with an object that in further investigation, or rather in interviewing, would be disclosed as a bottle. She said she was struck in the side of the face. She said that when she went home that night, her roommate, who was a nursing student, actually had to help pick the glass particles from her face. And I will tell you that That roommate was subsequently interviewed, and she denies doing that. She further would describe the injury that she saw on her roommate's face as being something of an abrasion. That description is consistent with what investigators would conclude when seeing a photograph that was taken sometime during the week of April 11th, which shows some swelling around Jackie's eye, and again, something that appears to be more of an abrasion as opposed to a blunt trauma injury. Jackie would further say during that interview that
we'll get back to Charlottesville shortly. We seem to have lost our feed there just for a minute. I think we've got it right back. Let's watch.
Are Jackie's phone records, and there is no such call outlined in those records. There was also a call for service, the totally unrelated call for service, around that same time period, in which a Charlottesville police officer respondent was there for several minutes. Where the officer was on Elliewood would have been visible to someone who would have been in or around the parking garage. I might highlight that, again, it wasn't until several weeks later that Jackie brings that assault to our attention. It's also at that time that she reveals a sexual assault that took place in 2012. She did not wish to report that incident that night to the officer who responded to meet with Dina Ramo and the university officer. And so no report was written at her request. But on May the 1st, 2014, Detective Vaya met with Jackie again in the presence of Dina Ramo. And again, Jackie refused to disclose the details of the sexual assault, nor did she wish to pursue the investigation involving the alleged physical assault, which occurred on April the 6th. And so we fast forward now to November. Rolling Stone magazine article is released. And again, President Sullivan contacts the department and asks for an immediate investigation. Jake quickly recalled having met with a young lady, pardon me, in April, connects the dots, reaches out to Jackie by phone, I believe, first, leaves a message. This is somewhere around just prior to the Thanksgiving break. Next day, he emails Jackie. And that time, Jackie responds back to him, and she agrees to meet with Detective Vaya after the Thanksgiving break. And so on December the 2nd, she comes to the Charlottesville Police Department accompanied by Dean Laurie Castine from the University of Virginia Dean of Students Office. She's also present with legal counsel that she had acquired through Legal Aid and Justice Center here in Charlottesville. And through her lawyer, she refuses to give a statement or answer any questions. At some point thereafter, in an effort to try to get some records that we thought might be relevant to our investigation, records that were specific to Jackie, that the university was not at liberty to give us because of federal privacy laws, we asked through legal counsel whether Jackie would consent to consent to allowing us to gain access by written consent to those records, and that request as well was denied. We were provided by counsel on behalf of Phi Kappa Psi a membership roster from 2012, along with the lease agreements at that time and bank records. 9 of the 11 residents were interviewed who were present or who were in the house in 2012, were interviewed and had no knowledge regarding a sexual assault, nor did they know the person known as Jackie. A questionnaire that was prepared by Sergeant Harris and Detective Vaya was sent to fraternity members. 19 of those questionnaires were returned. None provided any information regarding Jackie or a sexual assault, either on September the 28th, 2012, or at the house. The further investigation revealed no evidence that a party had taken place on September 28th as well. We checked the social calendar. There was no information pertaining to a calendar, such a party on the social calendar. In addition to the fact, we did find that their sister sorority, Delta Gamma, did in fact have a formal, I believe, on that particular evening, and the thought was that they would not likely have had 2 events as not to cannibalize each other's guest list. And so we weren't able to support that a party was taking place at Phi Kappa Psi. We also discovered during the course of the investigation, through I suspect a cooperative witness that was interviewed, or potential witness, a photograph that's time-stamped September the 28th around 11:30 at night. And it depicts the entrance corridor, the main room of the fraternity house, to the, as I recall, to the left of.
Depends on which way you're facing it, but from the inside.
So you have stairwell on one side, you have an entrance door, side entrance door on the other. There's a male depicted in the picture. He's holding two chairs. There's literally no one else around. We found that to be somewhat inconsistent with the large group that was described in the Rolling Stone article. Suffice it to say, we were unable to find any basis of fact to conclude that there was even an event on September the 28th, 2012, at that particular fraternity house. Investigation turned to two of Jackie's best friends that we had an opportunity, the investigators had an opportunity to interview. They were aware that Jackie was to be going on a date that particular night with a person identified as Haven Monahan. They had never met Haven Monahan. They had exchanged text messages with a person they believed to be Haven Monahan, but again, they had never met him. It's my understanding, as I recall, they were supposed to be going to the Boar's Head Inn for a dinner, and then they were going to go to a subsequent fraternity event. Unfortunately, the Boar's Head Inn doesn't retain reservation records from 2012. We didn't have sufficient information to access any credit card information to determine whether they even anyone ever dined at the Boar's Head Inn that evening or not. The other interesting piece of information that comes from the interview of these two friends is that their recollection of the meeting up after this event that is described in the article, they remember it as somewhat different than is described in the article. I believe the article indicates that Jackie reached out to her friends and then they met up closer to the Mad Bowl, or the area where the alleged assault took place. The friends seem to think that it Fitzhugh Dorm, somewhere across campus, was the location. They don't recall any physical injuries. They do feel like something occurred, but they don't recall any physical injuries. And so there's some inconsistencies between what they recall and what's outlined in the article. We've made numerous attempts to identify who Haven Monahan is, to the extent that Haven Monahan even exists, using that telephone number that they believe they were texting back and forth to. We searched numerous internet sites to try to identify him. The telephone number came back to, it was a Google number, as I recall, and there was no information that could be obtained, subscriber information that could be obtained from Google. We interviewed members of the aquatic staff. Haven Monahan, or this person Drew that's identified in the article, and Jackie were supposed to have worked together at the aquatic center pool. Interviewed the supervisors at the pool. None of them were familiar with a Drew or a Haven Monahan. There was another name that surfaced during the course of the investigation as we talked to people. This individual was someone worth looking at because I believe he worked at the aquatic center, and he also belonged to a fraternity, but not this same fraternity. So we wanted to be as thorough as we could. We contacted that person. He met with us. He was represented by counsel as well. He gave statements. He provided financial records, work schedules. I don't know that there was ever any overlap with respect to his shift or Jackie's shift at the pool. We also went as far as to interview, I believe, 5 of the 6 persons who resided at the fraternity that he was part of. All of them were cooperative, as I recall, and none of them had any information regarding a sexual assault that occurred at their house, nor were they aware of Jackie, as I recall. In addition to the fact that the layout of their house is very different than what is described in the Rolling Stone article. So that really is the extent of of this investigation, and I apologize that it has taken as long as it has. Unfortunately, we're not able to conclude to any substantive degree that an incident that is consistent with the facts contained in that article occurred at the Phi Kappa Psi fraternity house, or any other fraternity house for that matter. Now, I want to be clear about something. That doesn't mean that something terrible did not happen to Jackie on the evening of September the 28th, 2012. We are just not able to gather sufficient facts to conclude what that something may have been. So this case is not closed. It's not closed by any stretch of the imagination. It's suspended until such time as we are able to gather more information, or such time until someone comes forward and provides us with more information. There were also two other cases that were referenced in Jackie's conversations with Dean Aramo. She referenced an allegation of a 2010 sexual assault, which she said occurred at that particular fraternity house. And she also alleged a 2014 sexual assault, which she would say occurred at that fraternity house. We have no evidence of that. No one has come forward making such allegations, no witnesses, no victims, no evidence whatsoever to support that, support those claims. But we're asking if anyone has information related to a sexual assault that occurred in 2010 at that fraternity house, or 2014 at that fraternity house, or any other fraternity house, that they please cooperate with the police and bring that to our attention. And, you know, one last thing that I will say that I've reiterated before, since being called before the Board of Visitors to have this important discussion. Having police involvement at the very early stages of these investigations is extremely, extremely important. And as I said months ago, and will repeat now, with every second of every minute of every hour of every day, every week of every month, of every year, we lose evidence. We lose testimonial evidence. We lose physical evidence. We lose forensic evidence. We lose the evidence that's important to get to the truth behind these cases so that justice can prevail. So we'll answer your questions the best that we can. To the extent I can't answer the question, I'll certainly let you know. If it's outside my scope of knowledge, that's why these fine gentlemen are here. To the extent that they're able to cooperate with you, we certainly will.
Chief,
yes, sir.
As far as you can tell, the allegations laid out in the Rolling Stone article, as they were laid out in the magazine, they were untrue?
We have no way to support that. We have no evidence that supports those assertions.
Did Jackie say anything or do anything in the course of this investigation, misleading the police, that could result in any kind of charges?
We've had really our only encounter with Jackie, other than the telephone call and an email exchange, is when she came in with counsel in early December, and that is our last physical encounter with her, and any and all other information was shared through counsel. Yes, ma'am.
Did she say that she was cooperative in the investigation?
Well, she did not provide us a statement.
And then just a follow-up question. After the article came out, people were saying that there was a rape culture on campus. In the investigation, was there anything to back that up?
With respect to this investigation, we could find no information that would corroborate such an assertion. Yes, ma'am.
How much time and money did the Charlottesville Police Department devote to investigating this?
You know, I have not made that determination. A lot of time and energy went into trying to track down people, keeping in mind that we had no way to compel cooperation. So some of the time taken and invested was just trying to locate folks and get them in to interview them. Yes, ma'am.
The investigation included a sit-down interview with Sabrina Earley, who wrote the Rolling Stone magazine article.
DJ?
We did interview her, yes.
And what, was she able to cooperate anything?
Yeah, she was able to provide us some very specific questions. As a journalist, I mean, there's some things she just could not get into because of protecting her sources, but some of the stuff that was in the article, we were able to actually go through and try to get in a little more detail than what was actually printed. So, yeah, she was cooperative with us as best as she could be.
Did she seem to stand by the story when she was speaking?
You'll have to ask her that.
Can you just clarify? So it sounds like there had been a history of her saying that she had been assaulted. There was one other case?
No, I think Those were other alleged victims.
But I thought when she was walking down the street, she
Yeah, let me clarify that. Thank you. The second time she met with Dina Ramo in April of 2014, she discussed a physical assault being struck with a bottle on April the 6th. It's when she met with an officer regarding that incident that she also discloses to us for the first time the sexual assault that occurred in 2012.
But you had talked with her about a previous assault. She had come to the police about an assault other than what was reported in the police.
That was the April the 6th assault with the bottle? Yes, ma'am, that's correct.
Can you describe the phone records that you reviewed and how you obtained them?
I cannot. Yes, sir.
You mentioned something about 2010. Can you just clarify if that came from Jackie or someone else or what that was?
Well, my understanding is, and DJ, correct me if I'm wrong, is that Jackie brought to Dina Ramo's attention an incident in 2010 and 2014, but no one has come forward to report those incidents.
Well, I'm just confused because, I mean, maybe I'm wrong, but I didn't think Jackie was at the University of Virginia in 2010.
I don't know that she had actual knowledge of the event, but had knowledge such that she was able to share it.
But they weren't incidents. She
Not-
wasn't reporting incidents with herself.
That's correct. They were not incidents that involved her. Thank you for that point of clarification. Yes, ma'am.
Question. You mentioned the importance of how important it is to investigate early, to get that forensic evidence. But why was this not fully investigated, like you mentioned, the criminal investigation, right off the bat when you learned about this?
When we learned about it? Well, first of all, when are you talking about in April and May of 2014?
Right. Early on, before, because you mentioned that it was the university who asked you to come forward and help with an investigation, but upon learning of the allegations, upon your officers talking to Jackie, was an investigation?
She did not wish to pursue the criminal justice system as part of her options, and she certainly had the right to do that at that point.
Did she give a reason why, or her attorney give a reason why she wasn't fully cooperative this latest time around?
I don't recall that she did.
No, the last contact we had with her was on December 10th, and we were very distinctly and succinctly told that she would not talk to us, that she would not file a report, that she did not want it investigated, and that we were not to talk to her again. So that's what I can tell you.
Yes, sir.
Given what you've described, a comprehensive, thorough investigation, the credibility issues, reluctance of the individual to pursue charges, why aren't you closing the case?
Because I can't prove that something didn't happen. And there may come a point in time where either this survivor or this complaining party, this person we've identified as Jackie, or someone else may not come forward with information that might help us move this investigation further. I think it's a disservice to Jackie. I think it's a disservice to frankly, to the university to simply close this without at least allowing an opportunity so that if additional information comes forward, we're able to further investigate it.
How long do you keep it open? Years?
There's no statute of limitations on this particular type of crime. Yes, sir.
After Jackie met with the University of Virginia in May 2013, was there any communication between the university and Charlottesville police regarding what she talked about? And was there any, if not, was there any information given about why the university did not reach out to police?
We first learned of this incident in April of 2014.
And did the university explain why they did not reach out to you before April of 2014?
I think that's a question best asked of the university, and it's part of the larger discussion of how universities, the process that universities will go through as we move forward, the protocols to report this kind of information to the police and how that will be reported. I learned a lot about federal law that I didn't know much about prior to this, that really is somewhat restrictive in how universities share certain types of information with law enforcement. And so hopefully as we move forward, we'll get to work through some of those laws as well so they don't create, I think, the unforeseen consequence of being an obstruction to a criminal investigation. Yes, sir.
Just to clarify, Jackie is not facing any charges?
That is Charlottesville Police Chief Timothy Longo, who in this news conference in Charlottesville said after a 5-month-long probe, his department was unable to conclude from the evidence that there was ever any event, that rape that was alleged in that Rolling Stone article.